You mentioned the bomb factory, the place where the now dead bomb maker built his weapons of mass destruction and terror, reportedly not just for the attack here in Brussels, not at all, but also for the Paris attacks that happened back in November. Searchers and investigators who were there at the so-called bomb factory say they found that explosive, TATP. It's a compound that looks really like regular white sugar, and terrorists can buy the main ingredients in pharmacies and hardware stores. I mentioned it's called the mother of Satan because it's so dangerous and really so easy to set off. And it's an explosive mix that's actually been around for more than 100 years. But we've seen it a lot in recent attacks, including the ones in Paris and in London. Even in the failed effort of the shoe bomber, remember him, Richard Reed in New York. Let's bring in Brian Castner now. He's a former explosive ordnance disposal technician for the U.S. Air Force and author of the book, All the Ways We Kill and Die. Thanks for being here. Appreciate it. I'm most curious now. The news that has broken in this hour, Brian, is that the bomb maker himself is one who blew himself up at the airport. Bomb makers are notoriously protected. They are the most important element of all of this. The bomb maker is the key person in a terror attack. Why would they blow up the bomb maker unless they were finished with their reign of terror?
Yeah, it doesn't make much sense to me either, honestly. I think that you might have to wonder whether he was merely the maker of these few bombs or whether he ends up being a much larger, I don't know, mastermind, to use the colloquial term, I guess. Normally, you're right. The bomb maker is more like a consultant that travels from cell to cell, teaching individuals to make these things. But it takes a lot of education and time and training to get to that point. And yes, very unusual for the bomb maker to actually be involved in the operational side of this.
So clearly, putting the bombs together is a difficult process. The elements that are contained within they're easy to set off if you don't know exactly what you're doing. How hard would it have been for this small cell, these three men that we know of, maybe there's a fourth, to set off these bombs in the airport and the subway station here?
I don't think it's so much hard as tedious. I mean, making TATP can be dangerous if you don't know what you're doing. It's not it's not the explosive of choice. If they had access to military explosives, commercial explosives, to various fuel oil explosives, nitrate explosives, they would have used them, but they didn't. So there's a certain amount of desperation. Like you say, they had access to these chemicals. They're easy to buy. It's frustrating to put together, but not especially difficult. But putting all of the elements together, cooking up the explosives, building the device, doing both of those things without getting yourself hurt or killed, and then getting the bags to the correct location, there is a certain amount of, whether it's serendipity or planning, they've proven that they can be successful. And so it's no one thing. It's not that the explosives are more dangerous or their bombs are any more dangerous, but it's just their general competence over the last few months, as you've noted.
After the bombing at the Oklahoma City Federal Building back in the 90s, there was then a very close monitoring of the chemicals, the fertilizers that were needed to make such a large bomb as the one that blew up the Alfred P. Murrah Federal Building there. With these chemicals and these substances, it would be so much more. Is there a way for us to monitor such that getting ahead of this would be possible?
Yeah, it's really challenging. So fertilizer is now tracked in many countries and parts of the world because, as you say, it can be purchased in bulk to make large car bombs. But the P in TATP is peroxide, and that is in so many household cleaners and nail polish remover, and you could go through the whole list, right? So what can we do in a free and open society? At a certain point, how many of these things can you restrict? It's annoying and tedious and slow to make TATP out of these household cleaners, but obviously it's possible.
Brian Castner with us from Buffalo. Personally, I've lost the signal. If our viewers can still hear you, I cannot. Thank you for being here today. It is a